السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. حان الوقت لإنهاء ثقافة الإفلات من العقاب ومعاقبة إسرائيل التي سمحت بمذبحة صبرا وشاتيلا. اليوم نستذكر بألم ما حل في ذلك اليوم الأسود في التاريخ الإنساني مع شهود عيان على فظاعة تلك المجزرة. 35 عاما على مجزرة الغرابيب السود في صبرا وشاتيلا من الداخل. معكم زينب صفار، تابعونا. السادس عشر من أيلول سبتمبر، يوم مظلم كالح في التاريخ الإنساني الحديث، تاريخ مجزرة صبرا وشاتيلا في لبنان عام 1982، ولعلها واحدة من المذابح الأكثر دموية ووحشية بحق الفلسطينيين اللاجئين واللبنانيين المدنيين. وقت ذاك وقبل المذبحة بوقت قصير تم إجلاء منظمة التحرير الفلسطينية من لبنان نتيجة اتفاق تم التوصل إليه بعد الغزو الإسرائيلي للبلاد. وهذا يعني أن سكان صبرا وشاتيلا لم يتمتعوا بالحماية على الرغم من الوعود التي قطعها لهم فيليب حبيب مبعوث الرئيس الأمريكي رونالد ريغان حينها بأن أمنهم سيكون مضمونا. وهكذا سمحت القوات الإسرائيلية التي كانت تسيطر على المنطقة بدخول الميليشيات إلى المخيمات، ومنعت اللاجئين العزل من الفرار، وأضاءت السماء ليلا بالقنابل المضيئة، فيما استمر القتل بدم بارد ليومين. بعدها زودت إسرائيل القتلة بالجرافات لحفر مقابر جماعية. لا يزال عدد الذين قتلوا آنذاك مجهولا، وتراوح التقديرات بين 800 إلى 3500 شخص، بيد أن العدد الحقيقي يصعب تحديده، إما لأن الجثث دفنت بسرعة في تلك المقابر الجماعية، أو لأنه لم يتم العثور عليها قط. وقد خرج العديد من الرجال من المخيم واختفوا، ولم يتم الكشف عن أي معلومات بشأنهم حتى يومنا هذا بحسب المتابعين. الناجيتان من فظاعة القتل والعربدة في تلك المذبحة جراحة العظام السنغافورية البريطانية سوي أنغ تشي والممرضة الأمريكية ألان سيغل. وفي الذكرى 35 للمجزرة تعودان معنا بالذاكرة إلى تلك الأيام المريرة، حيث كانتا شاهدتين على هول ما حدث. Dr. Aung Suu Kyi, consultant orthopedic surgeon and founder of Medical Aid for Palestinians, survivor of the Sabra and Shatila massacre back in 1982, and author of the book From Beirut to Jerusalem. Welcome always to الداخل from the inside, ma'am.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you.
It's a pleasure to have you, ma'am. Well, Dr. Sui, now after 35 years to the Sabra and Shatila massacre, here you are back again in Lebanon. In the refugee camp, walking down the still poverty-stricken narrow alleys in the refugee camp. I don't want to take you back to those painful moments back then, but we have to listen and we have to go back and let the people remember how was it back then, because the people here are trying to forget. We need the people to remember what happened on those couple of days back then in 1982.
I arrived in Lebanon because I just can't bear to see Israel destroy Lebanon. So when I came, I was asked to work in Gaza hospital. I came with a Christian organization. And in Gaza hospital, we treated Lebanese, we treated Palestinians, anybody that comes wounded and so on. So I got to learn about the Palestinians because I was in Gaza hospital, meeting Palestinians, meeting people from Sabra, Shatila. At that time, they'll come back to rebuild their homes because the PLO has just evacuated. And under the American peace plan, the multinational peacekeeping force is supposed to safeguard the refugees and whoever is living around the camp, inside the camp.
The civilians, you mean?
Yeah, civilians,
Yes.
unarmed, that's totally disarmed. So they're rebuilding their homes, and I learned about why they are here. And I learned about how the refugee came to be from 1948, when they're driven out of Palestine and they walked and then they built their lives, you see. And they had no peace, but for that moment, we're talking about the end of August and beginning of September, they thought that because they've evacuated the PLO, there's going to be peace and they can rebuild their lives. So they're putting all their hearts into patching up their broken homes and trying to make a future for the children. Many children are wounded already. The grown-ups have been killed, and the able-bodied men and women have evacuated with the PLO. So the family was very broken. But still it was a period of hope. So people came back and rebuilt, and every day I go after work to find out about them. So that's the first time
Because you had a certain kind of misunderstanding about who the Palestinians
Because I thought all Palestinians were terrorists. So now I found Palestinians who have suffered so much, so I was bewildered.
It's because your country, Singapore, where you come from, they have this conception, or they try to disseminate such kind of information that the Palestinians are the enemy and they are the terrorists and the Israelis are the victims.
Yeah, so it was also the same, because at the time I was working in London as well, and the British press is mostly like that. It's very little mention about Palestinian refugees, everything about PLO terrorists. So I found out, you see, and boy, the injustice to these people. Not only have they lost their country, they're living in horrible conditions, they've been bombed, and they got nowhere to go, no future, no passport, and being called terrorists, so that everybody misunderstood them. So we can learn about them, and also learn about the Arab culture as a whole. Learn Arabic, learn to cook Arabic coffee, because you don't drink it, you cook, Arabic coffee.
Literally speaking, you cook it,
And the Palestinian embroidery, and it was 3 weeks of peace and hopefulness. And then suddenly, without warning, the multinational peacekeeping force disappeared. And then, that was on the 13th, they disappeared. And on the 14th, Bashar Jamal was assassinated.
Bashir al-Ismail.
Yeah.
Who was then the president of Lebanon.
He was assassinated. And on the morning of 15 at 5 a.m., Israeli planes flew in. And while the Israeli planes flew in, tanks began to move from South Lebanon all the way to Beirut. So the tanks overran Beirut city.
Israeli tanks.
And one contingent came towards Sabra Washatiala, shelling its way into the camps, surrounding the camp so that nobody can escape. And people who were rebuilding their homes couldn't escape. And then they shelled. That was the 15th, and at night we can hear shelling and all that. And then on the morning of the 16th of September, people begin to come in with gunshot wounds, mainly women, children, old people. It was really mid-morning. And so the hospital became very busy. We began to treat a lot of wounded people. So busy that, I couldn't leave the operating theater. A lot of wounded came in, but it continued on and on and on. So, and at night, the skies of Sabra Washatiala was lit by military flares. These are Israeli flares, bright, okay? And the main thing is,
the purpose of these flares
is to light up the camp so that whatever operations can continue, not my operation, but the operations of house-to-house search, killing people, can continue. And a lot of us has never seen that. We just thought that, this is so bright, what's happening, you see? But the casualties keep coming in. And not only the casualties, many of them have died, but some of the casualties begin to tell us story that they have come in the house to kill families. And also, people who are not wounded start running in the hospital to seek safety. because it's not safe in their homes because the neighbors were killed, you see. So there were 22 foreigners from all over Europe and America, okay, like Ellen and a lot of friends.
We will talk to Ellen after the break.
Okay,
yes.
Okay, very good. So Ellen and there were 22 of us. There was a staff, the medical staff of the Palestine Red Crescent Society, and they're both Lebanese and Palestinians. So we are working very hard to look after people. And there was all this going on. 2,000 people went to our hospital and slept on the floor, thinking that we're safe.
Dr. Sui, you tend to describe what happened back then in Sabra and Washatiila as a genocide, not just a massacre. Why?
Yes. I know. A lot of people argue with me.
Yes.
Because it has been planned. Because you see, what happened is this. Today, there is people arguing, okay? Why did this happen? Whose fault it is? But I want to tell you what happened from my analysis. First, you bomb a country to destroy as much as possible, to frighten the people. Secondly, you get everybody who can defend the Palestinians to leave, so that the camps have got no defense, right? Then you encourage people to come back and to rebuild their homes. Otherwise, they won't come back. When they come back, you promise them protection. Then you withdrew the protection and you send in all these tanks to seal the whole place so that people can be murdered.
Yet, Dr. Sui, we can all be assured that there is a vast collective amnesia regarding this massacre. And moreover, there is a continuous effort to brighten the picture of those who were the masterminds, the collaborators, and the perpetrators of this horrendous act. How do you regard this?
There are a few things at stake. Number one, no one has been brought to justice. So the case is still open. Okay? So those who are responsible would not want the case to continue. It's best if people forget. So that's one. Secondly, you're talking about the survivors. The survivors need closure in terms of justice, but they also need a future. They need to have security. They don't have security. They live in a refugee camp, not knowing where they can go. They've got no right of return. There are 30 professions they can't take. They can't. Only 2% get work permit, and it's poverty. So their parents came as refugees. They were born as refugees. They will grow up refugees, and they will die refugees. So the case is open. So people might want to forget, but for me, I will not forget. And I think it is highly irresponsible to forget. Maybe in my lifetime, I will not be able to see the Palestinians return home to Palestine. Maybe I won't. I hope I can, but maybe if I can't. But at least, as long as I'm alive, Palestine is in my heart. And I will do this for them. The world might try to forget, but we have to remind them.
Exactly.
It's a duty.
Exactly, it's our duty. Bless your heart, Dr. Ang Swee, consultant orthopedic surgeon and founder of Medical Aid for Palestinians, survivor of the Sabra and Washatiila massacre, and author of the book From Beirut to Jerusalem. Many thanks indeed for joining us. And we'll be joined with one of your colleagues also, Ellen. She's American. She's a nurse, and she was also one of the eyewitness or a survivor of the Sabra and Washatiila massacre. But after the break, ma'am. إذا فاصل قصير ونعود. لا تذهب بعيدا. ألان سيغل الممرضة الأمريكية الناجية من مجزرة صبرا وشاتيلا تعود كل عام إلى لبنان للمشاركة في الذكرى السنوية للمذبحة. تحدثنا عن مدى أهمية عدم نسيان هذا اليوم المشؤوم والعودة كل عام إلى هذا المكان للوقوف مع اللاجئين الفلسطينيين.
It's very important. It was a horrendous part of history. It's a big part of Palestinian history, It's a part of Israel's history, it's a part of Lebanon's history, and it's also now a part of the United States history. And there are still survivors, there are children of survivors, and we must remember why these people are in Sabra and Washatiela and why they have to live such a terrible life. My involvement with the Palestinians has brought me great pleasure and great peace of mind. Morally, it's the right thing to do. I always learned as a child that if something bad happens, that you must not be quiet, you must speak out.
Yeah, one of your prime targets on this trip is to pursue something different, to pursue additional information vis-a-vis what happened back then in 1982. Have you reached anything tangible?
The research currently, there's been an expose that there's a lot of collaboration between, there was a lot of collaboration between Israel and the Phalange even before Bashir Gemayel was assassinated. And that's very important. Also the fact that the international peacekeeping forces left here, but we are responsible, the United States is partially responsible for allowing this to happen. There was communication.
To what extent are the Americans or the American administration back then red-handed in what happened in
Secretary of State at the time, Philip Habib, promised safety and security for the Palestinians in the camps once the PLO evacuated. The PLO evacuated, and then they put in the international peacekeeping forces, multinational forces. But my understanding is that Israel started to pull out of West Beirut, pull out of Lebanon, and the people in the camps thought they were safe, that everything was fine. And we accepted the fact that the multinational forces were leaving Lebanon, were not protecting. So we had a role in not protecting the people here.
Now, what is the most appalling moment back then, as far as you can remember, Ellen? What is the incident that happened that is still so shocking to you?
There were so many incidents. It was so sad to watch people running to the hospital and putting a finger across their throats. Somebody was slitting their throat. It was awful to watch all these hundreds of refugees who lived in the camp, who you drink tea with, who you shop for, who you see every day, who you work with, who clean the floors of the hospital, people who come in who are sick. And here they were incredibly scared and running in the hospital looking for safety and security. And I remember coming there, that we were ordered to come downstairs to the entrance to the hospital. And the man had a thing, the Lebanese army. No, it said Al-Quwat al-Lubnani. He was not the Lebanese army.
Lebanese forces.
Lebanese forces, and how they marched us down the street, and we saw dead bodies. We saw walkie-talkies. We saw women being herded on both sides of the street. Got to the end of the street, and we were put in front of a firing squad. And the Israelis came down and stopped that. The most amazing moment for me is when we were outside, when we were in the forward command post, when we were with the Israeli soldiers. And it was the first day of Rosh Hashanah. And today is the first day of Rosh Hashanah, which is the Jewish New Year.
Yes.
And they were praying. There were Jewish soldiers, Israeli soldiers, that were actually praying. And one of them had a piece of honey cake. It is a tradition that we eat honey cake on Rosh Hashanah because it is symbolic of a sweet year. And he had it wrapped in a piece of tin foil and plastic. And I imagined that his mother had given him this to take with him, had no idea where he was going. And he had this piece of honey cake. And when you think of what was going on right below him, it breaks my heart. I'm pained that this could have happened. how could they be doing this at this time? And I will never forget that. I wrote a letter a couple of years ago.
And what about the impunity? What about, you know, for example, your country, they are the defenders of democracy and freedom, and they host most of the international human rights networks and organizations, but there is complete impunity even when it takes, for example, the legal proceedings or the different tribunals that was there, the tribunals. You know, there was no...
Ignored.
Yeah, totally.
Ignored.
Totally.
Yeah.
So...
And Israel pressured everybody not to take any further steps, not to allow an international court of justice, not to bring charges, screaming blood libel.
Exactly, exactly. Now, you tend to describe, Ellen, the Palestinians in the Palestinian refugee camps as the forgotten ones. Why?
Yes, because nobody cares about them. You say the word Palestinian and you speak of the occupation. Everybody talks about the occupation. They talk about the West Bank, they talk about Gaza. Refugees, refugees. Nobody mentions the Palestinian refugees in Lebanon. And the camps here and the situation here is much worse than it is in Gaza. These are the original Palestinians. These are 48 Palestinians, 47, 48. They're now in the 4th generation here. Why is the world completely ignoring this situation? I don't know. This is a job that we have to do. The Israelis supplied the flares that lit the camps up. When the camps were lit up, the militia could find their way through the alley and shoot people. You'd see a flare go up and then you'd hear tat, 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 tat. So it lit the area for them. 1. 2, they had walkie-talkies and they were, I am sure, in communication with the Israeli soldiers. At the end of the camp, there was a yellow bulldozer with the Hebrew letter Aleph on it. The forward command post, they also took us to a UN courtyard. In the UN courtyard, they questioned us, had our passports. There was the newspaper, the Israeli newspaper, Yehudiyot Ahronot. There were a sweater from an Israeli soldier. That's where they were camping out. There were cans, rations with Hebrew on it. And the forward command post, they were looking down with binoculars. They could see what was going on. That, to me, is not indirect responsibility. They surrounded the camp so the Palestinians couldn't leave if they tried. So that's a whole lot more than indirect. Seems to me direct responsibility.
Right, Ellen Siegel, American nurse, survivor of the Sabra and Washatiلا massacre. Many thanks indeed for joining us, and we hope to see you here every year.
Inshallah.
Inshallah. Many thanks indeed. إذا لقاء جديد في الأسبوع المقبل مع ضيف جديد وقضية جديدة ودائما من الداخل. للمزيد من التواصل بريدنا theinside@الميادين.net وصفحتنا على الفيسبوك من الداخل من كل فريق العمل من كل الميادين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.